Hello and welcome. I'm AJ Paul, Graduate Fellow at VitaFoods, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to Day 3 of our VitaFoods Insights Virtual Expo Asia event. Before we begin, I would like to remind our audience that there will be a Q&A box located in the top right corner of the platform where you can submit any questions you have for our speakers. These will be answered time permitting at the end of the presentation. Our first session of the day will be presented by Jeff Crowver, the founder and executive director of HPA-China. Jeff has been working in the natural health product industry since 1993 and is recognized as one of the foremost experts on China's developing natural health product industry. In this session, Jeff will present the latest on China's dietary supplement industry. Jeff, I'll turn things over to you.
Well, thank you, AJ. Happy to be here. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining me today. I'm going to talk, as AJ said, about China's dietary supplement industry. I've got quite a bit of stuff here, so let me just jump right in here. So today I'm going to talk mostly about regulatory for dietary supplements in China, what you need to do to get into the market legally, talk a little bit about consumer trends and cross-border e-commerce at the end there. So first off, this is outside of regulatory, but everyone wants to know, how big is the market and what kind of, size and growth and all that. So the estimate is about $45 billion US. That number can jump quite high depending on where you're getting your information from. We've seen as high as over $60 billion US, but mostly that's due to a lot of overlap and transparency issues. It's very difficult to get an accurate figure. There's quite a few things like conference selling and Daigou sales and things that go into the market that are not tracked. So it's hard to get an exact number, but 45 billion should be a pretty good, number there. And about 15 billion of that is through e-commerce. And the industry's grown at anywhere from 10 to 12%. Again, it's a little bit of a transparency thing, but definitely growing. And it's definitely a market to take notice and make sure that you have a plan to get in to that market. So let's jump into the regulations. Some of the information was provided by our friends at CRS, one of our long-term partners. Okay, so this is kind of very basic, but for those that are not familiar with the market, the China Food and Drug Administration used to be in charge of dietary supplements, but they are no longer. It is no longer called the CFDA. It is now the CDA, and is not. It's more of drug and other areas. But this new agency, the State Administration of Market Regulation, is very big and is overseeing all the all these different industries here. Of that is food and industrial product safety and health food products, which would be dietary supplements. So this is the agency you'd have to deal with if you're trying to get your products approved for entry. Another agency, the General Administration China Customs, I think maybe many people have seen this in the news. There's a decree number 248 for overseas manufacturers to register their manufacturing facilities with customs prior to exporting. This was issued in April 12th, 2021 and came effective this year, January 1st. And there's 18 categories, which does include dietary supplements. There's no government fees. It's a free process, but it's not straightforward. Some companies are having trouble getting the proper documentation or how to actually do it. And it has to be the actual manufacturer. So as an example, some dietary supplement companies are not manufacturing their own products. They have a contract manufacturer that does that for them. So that company, the contract manufacturer, would actually have to be the one to register because they're only dealing with the manufacturers at this level. Cross-border e-commerce. So one thing we will talk about, if you're selling into China through cross-border, cross-border is not considered traditional import-export trade business. So you do not need to do this decree 248. But we do, for companies that do need help, you can always send me a message later. We do help out with that. And there's fees ranging from about $800 or hourly fees, depends how much help you need. But that's an important one. And if you're going to send product over to China and it's food-based or supplements that are in a food-based dosage form, then you definitely need to get this taken care of. Okay, so there's two types of approvals for dietary supplements. One would be what we just call plain, registration, and that comes with 24 health claims. There used to be 27. I'll get into that in a little bit, but that would be the top one. That's the one that is the most expensive and takes the longest. And then there's recording, or sometimes called filing, which is for vitamins, minerals, and there's 5 new ingredients that were added to that list, which I'll go over. So registration and filing, you need to do that if you're going to do traditional imports, meaning you're exporting product from one country to China, and it has to go through customs, and will be heading for brick and mortar retail or domestic.com sales. So domestic.com means that the server for that web platform is actually located in China and is looked at as general, regular commerce. No registration or filing is needed if you're going to do the cross-border e-commerce, or there's overseas purchases done through overseas sellers or Chinese people that go overseas on vacation and buy products and bring them back. They don't need registrations. They just need to be declared for tax purposes. So there's one caveat here, which is although international companies can register their products with China, the brand itself and the product that they're trying to register has to be something that's been in country sold. Let's just use the US as an example, since I'm sitting here in the US. The product would have to be 1 year of sales history in the US market before it could enter the China market. So it's not really that fair, because, for example, a Chinese company can come up with a new product for China and just start, get it registered and start selling it, whereas the US has to have a 1-year sales history. And that can make it challenging, because sometimes products need to be reformulated to match the regulatory procedures of China in terms of dosage, potency levels, things like that. And that would require you to create a new product, and then you'd have to wait 1 year before you can actually sell it. So that's definitely something to pay attention to. And this is what the registration looks like. This is an older one, but this would be on the packaging, the label, or the box itself of the product. And we call this a blue hat, just because it looks like a little blue hat or blue crown. Many of you have maybe heard people referring to this blue hat registration in China, and that's what it looks like. The top line there in Chinese, it just says health food product is how that would be translated. The second line is the actual registration number. G there shows that it's a domestic product. So this is a domestic 2004 registration. And the very bottom one has the old adage of the state administration. Oh no, that's the, I'm sorry. The FDA is there. So the new one would actually have different verbiage there. Okay, so for 2021, SAMR issued approvals for 2,349 health food products. Out of all those, only 110 were actually new registrations. The majority of them, as you can see, were renewals, alterations, or transfers. So these registrations are only good for 5 years, so they do need to be renewed. Alterations would be if your company moved the headquarter address or changed any information that was on the actual registration, being it responsible people, or the company name was altered, or the address. And then transfers are if a company is going to sell that blue hat to another, to a third party, and transfer the ownership. So for example, if a company got bought and sold, or a company went out of business, but they had blue hat registrations in their hands, those are worth money. So they might as well sell them and transfer them to somebody else. So this is, as I mentioned before, the 27 claims. They're all listed here. The ones in red are the ones that were canceled. So facilitating milk secretion, improving skin oil content, or improving child growth and development. Those 3 were canceled. So there's now 24. And so what you would do with a product is you would look at these 24 different claims and fit your product into, like, what does my product do? Because of COVID, obviously the very first one, they're enhancing immunity. So you have a product that you want to get an enhancing immunity claim, then you would go for that claim there. So the registration timeline. So there's a lot that needs to be done with paperwork and going back and forth. This process, you definitely need to get an agent to help you with this. Even Chinese domestic companies will use agents, and agents typically are owned and run by people that formerly worked at, like, China FDA or the Ministry of Health or some government agency, and they understand exactly how to do these registrations, what things are needed. And if they've been doing it a long time, they probably will know, which countries lack the right documentation. Because sometimes China requires a document that your country may not have or provide. So, for example, again, in the US, we have, the CGMP or GMP certification, but that is not provided to companies here in America by the US FDA. That's done by third parties. So sometimes the documentation is a little bit hard to come by. But overall, at the end there, the total amount of time is about 24 to 36 months. I would probably say safer that it's 36 to maybe 48 months in some cases. But if you have all the documents ready to go and you do all of your testing and toxicologies and any animal or human tests that need to be done in China, and you have a good agent, you probably could get by with 36 months. And then for coenzyme Q10 and the other ingredients, which I'll go over, that's about 15 months. I'll go to those in a minute, though. Okay, and then cost. So it's generally about 150,000 US dollars. You can see a range there from 95 to 174, but in general, and that really depends on the ingredients, like what's in your product, what kind of claims you're going after. Some claims are more expensive than others. You can see in the testing fees in the center there that enhanced immunity or sleep is $48,000 approximately, whereas if you're doing blood lipid reduction or antioxidants or some others, they're going to be a lot more testing fees there. And of the total, about 1/3 of the fees are going to the agent themselves. So the agents take a pretty good chunk of that money, because they do a lot of work on behalf of the company trying to get the approval. So here's those ingredients I was mentioned. So these 5 new ingredients were added to the filing or recording process. If you're going to do a file or record product, they're only pretty much allowing vitamin and minerals. So individual vitamin and minerals can be go through that recording process, and they just added these. So CoQ10, melatonin, fish oil, spirulina, and linger, or otherwise known as reishi mushroom. Those can be go through the recording process as single ingredients. So you can't mix these. So for example, you couldn't take CoQ10 and mix it with fish oil and then try to get it recorded. You'd have to go through the full registration process. And the other kind of unfair thing on these is they're only allowing these to be recorded or filed by domestic companies. So as an international company, you would have to go through the regular registration procedures for these products, although they would go through a little faster, but not as fast as a recorded or filed product domestically. So you could probably get away if you've got a joint venture in China, you've got a joint venture partner, and you release a product yourself. As long as the joint venture in China released it, you probably could do a recording process. So recording, again, I mentioned that it's vitamins and minerals for the most part. So you'll see here the most popular ones that have been recorded are vitamin E, vitamin C, calcium, zinc, and vitamin D, and multivitamins. Filings of last year was 2,359. Only 23 of those were from overseas companies. The majority of them, again, are domestic. And then in the center, you'll just see most of them are single nutrient products. And then the next would be multi-nutrients, would be like a multivitamin, and then 2 nutrients. So for example, like calcium and vitamin D would be a common 2 nutrient product. And then for the dosage forms, tablets, hard tablets are still the most popular. That first section there in blue here, followed by capsules, granulars. So for the US market, we don't have as many granulars as you'd find in like maybe Japan or some Asian countries, the little sachets with granulars. Oral liquids, drops, and then these 2 on the end here in the red box, these are new dosage forms that have been approved. Powder and gelatin candy, or gummies is another word what we would use for these. So the gummies are another dosage form. So you could, for example, make a calcium in a gummy form and have that recorded. Now, just like the full registration, there is a time frame and cost involved to doing the filing or recording. It's not free. It generally takes about 8 to 10 months to go through the process, so it's a lot faster than the registration. And it costs a lot less too, as you can see here. It costs anywhere from $18,000 to just over $20,000 for that. And again, it depends on what you're trying to get approved, which vitamins, which minerals, or CoQ10, fish oil, etc. And then in this case, the consulting fees are almost half of the actual total costs you'd be paying to the agent. And both the registration and the recording or filing are both 5-year, good for 5 years. So after 5 years, you have to renew them. So consumer trends. So this could be its own seminar in itself. I mean, it's a very big category, but I tried to condense it down into something that's not too crazy. And we're focusing on 5 different groups. and this information was, some of it was provided by our friends at TMO, one of our good partners we work a lot with in China. So the first one is young families. So I lived in China for almost 15 years. When I got there in 2004 was the first time I got there. Typically, mom was the one purchasing products for her kids and for her parents or the grandparents, not for herself though. Typically the mom and dad being, maybe late 20s, 30s, 40s, something like that. They didn't take supplements that much. And you can see here by the products of choice, I won't go through every single detail on this slide, but you'll see that, they're buying things that are going to be for, fish oil and glucosamine are more in tune with grandparents. And then DHA for kids, and probiotics also for kids, but adults as well, but more so for the kids. And then their purchasing habits. So the purchasing channels, this is an interesting thing to look at when we go through each one of these personas or categories. So they're pretty balanced down here with e-commerce places. So they're buying their products through e-commerce channels or apps or mini programs. Those are the 2 kind of areas they spend time. That's where they buy things. Direct sales or multi-level marketing is going to be the least in terms of this young family where they shop. So then we got the middle-aged or elderly. Again, they're looking at omega-3s, fish oils, things that bones, joints, heart health. Coenzyme Q10 is a very popular one. Not listed here, but also a very, very popular one, and a big problem in China, like everywhere else with elderly people, is sleeping. So a lot of senior citizens have trouble sleeping. So melatonin or sleep type products would also be a choice of this group. But most interesting here is you look down at the purchasing channels, and you'll see direct sales is by far the biggest one. And that's fairly easy to explain. Direct sales, landed in China very early. So, Amway and Herbalife and these type of companies have been in China dating back many years, many decades now. And so the senior citizens that are now in their 60s, back in their 30s or 40s, you know, were coming in contact with these direct sale companies because they were the first ones really entering the market. So they still have some affinity or loyalty to those that sales channel there. And then, you know, apps and mini programs and live streaming, these are kind of for the younger people. So a lot of seniors don't really understand how these work. And so that makes a lot of sense and it's interesting to see. And then got the young, you know, young ladies or office workers, those that are interested in beauty and collagen, grapeseed, anti-aging, anything that's good for face and being younger or thin, weight loss products. That's going to be this channel. And again, because this channel is mostly younger, you're going to see, you know, big channels like e-commerce, mini apps, and here live streaming is the big one. And that's because the young ladies can go on live streaming and watch someone explain to them how this works or why you should take it, or, you know, look at this person, they took it and their skin looks wonderful, and, you know, even demonstrations in some cases. So live streaming is a very powerful channel for this group of people. Fitness, again, using myself as an example, when I got to China back in 2004, the first time, there were no gyms in China. They were just mostly in five-star hotels. So there wasn't many people exercising in China in terms of weightlifting or doing cardio on a treadmill. Most exercise in China was done outside, you know, badminton or, you know, kicking a Genza little feathered ball around, or, you know, some people did walk or jog. Riding a bike, of course, is good exercise. But when the Olympics came around 2008, NBA and basketball and fitness and everything just started bleeding into the market, CrossFit and bodybuilding and everything. So this is a very growing, a really dynamic growing channel, the overall kind of fitness channel. And again, it's driven by young. So you're going to see live streaming, mini apps, and then also the e-commerce. But also here, not listed, is a lot of people will get their information from gym trainers. So there's many gyms now in China for, you know, lifting weights and treadmills and ellipticals and all that. And there's trainers and there's a lot of groups, you know, in China handing out certifications and education for fitness trainers, and they will on the side. A lot of them will sell or educate people on that. So that's you know, a big channel that's not listed here. And then direct sales is very small here, and that's because, you know, although direct sale companies do have protein powders, they're not really well known, you know, amongst these younger people for sports nutrition. So they tend to buy the foreign brands and some domestic brands that are just focusing on sports nutrition and fitness nutrition. And then the final one is office workers. So China has a lot of young and old, but both, you know, working really long hours, especially the people in the IT industry, working 6 days a week, sometimes, you know, 10, 12 hours a day. So they're looking at things that are, you know, helping with their sleep, melatonin. Also, office workers, a lot of times they have to go on meetings and go to dinners, and a lot of times there's a lot of you know, alcohol consumption. So liver protection is a big issue, and general multivitamins and probiotics or gut health. So again, here we're looking at kind of balanced, similar to the young office workers looking for the beauty. So e-commerce, live streaming, not as popular, but mini programs and apps. These would be, you know, directly on your phone. And again, direct sales is much lower. And it makes sense. Direct sales in general has been going down in China from a very dominant position, controlling, you know, huge percentage of the market. And year by year, the sales keep going down because there's just more and more opportunities and products entering the market through cross-border and other ways that, you know, giving that channel some challenges. Excuse me. Okay, so cross-border e-commerce, just a couple slides here about this. And again, this could be a huge standalone seminar, but I just want to get you some interesting information here. So this is a pie chart of the major e-commerce platforms. So you've got Tmall, HK, Jingdong or JD, Taobao, Pinduoduo, VIP, Kala, Suning, and Amazon. There are more, but these are the majors. And if you look at, who controls 90% of this entire pie, it's Alibaba, which controls, and this is a snapshot in time. This isn't these numbers do change, but this is for like 2021. So Alibaba controls about 58%, and Alibaba actually is Tmall is owned. Alibaba owns Tmall. They own Tmall HK. So this would be Tmall. They also call this Tmall Global. And this is the cross-border channel. So this server would actually be located like in Hong Kong and not in mainland China. And then, so Alibaba again owns Tmall, Tmall HK. They also own Taobao over here. And then also they purchased Kala, I think a few years back. I can't remember when they did that, but they own all those. And then JD platforms would be here, JD, and they also have JD Worldwide, which is also like Tmall.hk. So it's a kind of a cross-border channel. And then growing and very popular now are the social platforms. So here, again, there's lots of social platforms. Here's 5 of the big ones. So Douyin, it's got 700 million MAU, which is monthly active users. So that is huge. That's twice the US population right there. So these are short videos, live streaming. It's most akin to TikTok is the international version of this. WeChat has 1.2 billion monthly users, and it's similar to Facebook and like PayPal combined into one single entity. Here we have Xiaohongshu, or our little red book would be the translation of this. Some people just call it red. That's got 100 million, and that's something like Instagram and Pinterest kind of put together. So people are posting short clipped videos and how to cook things and clothes and all these type of things. So this is a very popular growing platform. And then Bilibili is similar to like YouTube, and that's got 223 million monthly users. And the videos there are going to be much longer than something that would be on Little Red Book or Douyin. And at the end here we got Weibo, which is kind of like Twitter. It's a social events, kind of news, and that's got 566 million. This is probably one of the oldest platforms here listed, and it's not as popular as before. But these are very important together in how you do marketing and branding of your product, and you have to really make sure that people understand who you are and what your product is to get it sold. So here's like how do companies use these? So discovery, research, purchase, and loyalty. You'll see here WeChat pops up 3 times. So it's a very important platform to be involved with. But for discovery purposes, Little Red Book here and growing, actually getting very popular, Douyin, are very popular ways for people to get their first exposure to a brand and kind of exploring it or discovering it, and then moving down into research, down to purchase. So a lot of these, even though they do have like Douyin and now and Little Red Book are having places where you can actually buy or link to buy, people are still going to WeChat and Taobao. This is Tianmao or Taobao. These would be 2 areas that people would use to purchase things. So this would be like Alibaba owns Tianmao, which is Tmall, and Tmall uses Alipay. So Alipay is like PayPal. So these are the 2 popular ways to buy products in China would be through WeChat or Alipay. And then loyalty is WeChat is something that people use constantly every day for many, many different things in China, including paying their bills at home and all these other things. That's where they're really going to be, kind of trapped into the, pulled into the loyalty part of it. And that concludes my presentation. Just a quick introduction here. If you're not familiar with what HPA-China does, we do market entry and regulatory consulting. We help our members and clients find partners in matchmaking. We do marketing and branding, sourcing, industry conferences, etc. So if you have any questions about what I've went over, please feel free to connect with me, or if we have time to answer your questions now, it'd be great. And I thank you for your time. And that's our HPA Global Insights channel. So go on YouTube and you can see a bunch of our videos there. We talk about China and a bunch of other markets as well. So again, thank you so much for your time.
Amazing. Well, thank you, Jeff, for those fascinating insights into China's dietary supplement industry. I think we do have time for one quick question, and that would be, given the requirements to have been marketed in a country of origin, does this open the door to reverse engineering of formulas by domestic firms?
That's an interesting question. Yeah, I mean, it's anything that you bring to China. So I'm guessing the question is, what is it? Is it making it such that a Chinese company can just copy foreign products or formulas? One area that we didn't go too much in, and again, it's a whole thing, is intellectual property protection. So before you enter the China market, you want to make sure that you protect all your intellectual property and keep it close to you until you're ready to make your dive into the market. So, going into a market and doing some exploratory work and handing out your business cards and all these things, make sure your trademark is protected. And that would include your products. So you don't want to really expose your products to China too much until you're ready to dive in and get going with business, because yes, someone could, just copy your formula and get it registered or try to get it approved before you even get a chance to do it.
Amazing. Well, once again, thank you, Jeff, for joining us. And to our audience, if you have any further questions, please feel free to reach out to Jeff directly on the platform after this. I hope you enjoyed day 3 of our VitaFoods Insights Virtual Expo Asia. Thanks, and we'll see you in the next session.